are not accustomed, sir, to be so strongly loved." By this time, breakfasted and rehabilitated, I was ready to go forth. The girl swung back the heavy curtain that served in place of door across the entrance of my chamber, and leading the way by a corridor and marble steps while I followed, and whether it was the Martian air or the meal I knew not, but thinking mightily well of myself until we came presently into the main palace stairs, which led by stately flights from the upper galleries to the wide square below. As we passed into the full sunshine, and no sunshine is so crisply golden as the Martian, amongst twined flowers and shrubs and gay quaint birds building in its cornices, a sleek youth rose slowly from where he had spread his coat as couch upon a step, and approaching asked, "You are the stranger of yesterday?" "Yes," I answered. "Then I bring a message from Prince Hath, saying it would pleasure him greatly if you would eat the morning meal with him." "Why," I answered, "it is very civil indeed, but I have breakfasted already." "And so has Hath," said the boy, gently yawning. "You see, I came here early this morning, but knowing you would pass sooner or later, I thought it would save me the trouble if I lay down till you came. Those quaint people who built these palaces were so prodigal of steps," and smiling apologetically, he sank back on his couch and began toying with a leaf. "Sweet fellow," I said, and you will note how I was getting into their style of conversation. "Get back to Hath when you have rested. Give him my most gracious thanks for the intended courtesy, but tell him the invitation should have started a week earlier. Tell him from me, you nimble-footed messenger, that I will postdate his kindness and come tomorrow. Say that meantime I pray him to send any ill news he has for me by you. Is the message too bulky for your slender shoulders?" "No," said the boy, rousing himself slowly. "I will take it." And then he prepared to go. He turned again and said, without a trace of incivility, "But, indeed, stranger, I wish you would take the message yourself. This is the third flight of stairs I have been up to-day." Everywhere it was the same friendly indolence. Half the breakfasters were lying on coloured shawls in groups about the square. The other half were strolling off, all in one direction I noticed, as slowly as could be towards the open field beyond. No one was active or had anything to do save the yellow folk, who flitted to and fro fostering the others, and doing the city work as though it were their only thought in life. There were no shops in that strange city, for there were no needs. Some booths I saw indeed, and temple-like places, but hollow and used for birds and beasts, things these lazy Martians love. There was no tramp of busy feet, for no one was busy. No clank of swords or armour in those peaceful streets, for no one was warlike. No hustle, for no one hurried. No wide-packed asses nodding down the lanes, for there was nothing to fill their packs with. And though a cart sometimes came by with a load of lolling men and maids, or a small horse, for horses they had, paced along, itself nearly as lazy as the master he bore, with trappings sewed over bits of coloured shell and coral, yet somehow it was all extraordinarily unreal. It was a city full of the ghost of the life which once pulsed through its ways. The streets were peopled, the chatter of voices everywhere, the singing boys and laughing girls wandered, arms linked together, down the ways filled every echo with their merriment. Yet somehow it was all so shallow that again and again I rubbed my eyes, wondering if I were indeed awake, or whether it were not a prolonged sleep of which the tomorrow were still to come. "What strikes me as strangest of all, good comrade," I observed pleasantly to the tripping presence at my elbow, "is that these countrymen of yours who shirk to climb a flight of steps, and have palms as soft as rose petals, these wide ways paved with stones as hard as a usurer's heart." An laughed. "The stones were still in their native quarries had it been left to us to seek them. We are like the conies in the ruins, sir, the inheritors of what other hands have done. Ay, and undone, I think, as well, for coming along I have noticed axe chippings upon the walls, smudges of ancient fire and smoke upon the cornices." An winced a little and stared uneasily at the walls, muttering below her breath something about trying to hide with flower garlands the marks they could not banish, but it was plain the conversation was not pleasing to her. So unpleasant was the talk or sight of woodmen, thither folk as she called them, in contradiction to the hither people about us here, that the girl was clearly relieved when we were free of the town and out into the open playground of the people. The whole place down there was a gay shifting crowd. The booths of yesterday, the arcades, the archways, were still standing, and during the night unknown hands had redecked them with flowers, while another day's sunshine had opened the coppice buds, so that the whole place was brilliant past expression. And here the hither folk were varying their idleness by a general holiday. They were standing about in groups, or lying ranked like new plucked flowers on the banks, piping to each other through reeds as soft and melodious as running water. They were playing inconsequent games and breaking off in the middle of them like children looking for new pleasures. They were idling about the drinking booths, delicately stupid with quaint thin wines dealt out to all who asked. The maids were ready to chevy or to be chevied through the blossoming thickets by anyone who chanced upon them. The men slipped their arms round their slender waists and wandered down the paths, scarce seeming to care even whose waist it was they circled, or into whose ear they whispered the remainder of the love tale they had begun to some one else. And everywhere it was hi, and ha, and so, and si, as these quaint people called to one another, knowing each other as familiarly as ants of a nest, and by the same magic, it seemed to me. "An," I said presently, when we had wandered an hour or so through the drifting throng, "have these good countrymen of yours no other names but monosyllabic? Nothing to designate them but these chirping syllables?" "Is it not enough?" answered my companion. "Once, indeed, I think we had longer names. But," she added, smiling, "how much trouble it saves to limit each one to a single sound. It is uncivil to one's neighbours to burden their tongues with double duty, when half would do." "But have you no patronymics? Nothing to show the child comes of the same source as his father came?" "We have no fathers." "What, no fathers?" I said, starting and staring at her. "No, nor mothers either, or at least none we remember. For again, why should we? Mayhap in that strange district you come from you keep count of these things, but what have we to do with either when their initial duty is done? Look at that painted butterfly swinging on the honey laden catkin there. What knows she of the mother who shed her life into a flower cup, and forgot which flower it was the minute afterwards? We, too, are insects, stranger." "And do you mean to say of this great concourse here that every atom is solitary, individual, and can claim no kindred with another save the loose bonds of a general fraternity? A specious idea, horrible, impracticable." Whereat An laughed. "Ask the grasshopper if it is impracticable. Ask the little buzzing things of grass and leaves who drift hither and thither upon each breath of wind, finding kinsmen never, but comrades everywhere. Ask them if it is horrible." This made me melancholy, and somehow set me thinking of the friends immeasurably distant I had left but yesterday. What were they doing? Did they miss me? I was to have called for my pay this afternoon, and tomorrow was to have run down south to see that freckled lady of mine. What would she think of my absence? What would she think if she knew where I was? Gods! It was too mad, too absurd. I thrust my hands into my pockets in fierce desperation, and there they clutched an old dance programme and an out-of-date cheque for a New York ferry boat. I scowled about on that sunny, helpless people, and laying my hand bitterly upon my heart, felt in the breast pocket beneath a packet of unpaid Boston tailor's bills and a note from my landlady asking if I would let her aunt do my washing while I was on shore. Oh, what would they all think of me? Would they brand me as a deserter, a poltroon, and a thief, letting my name presently sink down in shame and mystery in the shadowy realm of the forgotten? Dreadful thoughts! I would think no more. Maybe An had marked my melancholy, for presently she led me to a stall where in fantastic vases wines of sorts I had described before were put out for all who came to try them. There was medicine here for every kind of dullness, not the gross cure which earthly wine effects, but so nicely proportioned to each specific need that one could regulate one's debauch to a hairbreadth, rising through all the gamut of satisfaction, from the staid countenance coming of that flask there, to the wild extravagance of the furthermost vase. So my stripling told me, running her fingers down the line of beakers carved with strange figures encased in silver, each in its cluster of little attendant drinking cups, light-coloured, and waiting round on the white napkins as the shore boats wait to unload a cargo round the sides of a merchant vessel. "And what," I said, after curiously examining each liquor in turn, "what is that which stands alone there in the humble earthen jar, as though unworthy of the company of the others?" "Oh, that," said my friend, "is the most essential of them all. That is the wine of recovery, without which all the others were deadly poisons. The which, lady, looks as if it had a moral attaching to it. It may have, indeed, I think it has, but I have forgotten. Prince Hath would know. Meanwhile, let me give you to drink, great stranger. Let me get you something." "Well then," I laughed, "reach me down an antidote to fate, a specific for an absent mistress, and forgetful friends." "What was she like?" said An, hesitating a little and frowning. "Nay, good friend," was my answer, "what can that matter to you?" "Oh, nothing, of course," answered that Martian. and while she took from the table a cup and filled it with fluid I felt in the pouch of my